The Sweet Sound of Success show is brought to you by the Mentor Studio. The Mentor Studio is an exclusive mentoring and training program for social influencers, business owners, entrepreneurs, coaches, and startups, bringing personal development to the underserved around the world. And brought to you by Success Strategists, simple strategies that work to develop your business with flow and ease using proven strategies and the right tactics. This is the Sweet Sound of Success with Sue Wilhite, Success Attraction Expert. Wanda Allen is an international speaker and coach and the author of Follow-Up Savvy and Follow-Up Sales Strategies. She had a 25-year corporate career where she ultimately held the position of Senior Vice President. She now helps professionals improve sales and relationships by developing strong follow-up skills. Welcome, Wanda. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me. I look forward to this.
Oh, if there's anything that entrepreneurs need to know about, it's got to be follow-up, right? So I'm really looking forward to this interview and how you develop such great follow-up skills that you actually wrote the book on it.
Yes, yeah.
But first, for my viewers and audience that may not have encountered this show before, this show is subtitled The Hero's Journey for the Entrepreneur Soul. And I am basing the interview around part of Joseph Campbell's cycle of the hero's journey. And I say only part of it because there are roughly 16 parts to the cycle. And if I did that, we'd be here all day. So we're only taking out 5 pieces from it. And those pieces are the ordinary beginning, which no entrepreneur has an ordinary beginning. The call to action, which is how did you become an entrepreneur? What made you do that crazy thing to become an entrepreneur? What were some of the big hairy monsters that you got to play with? And believe me, entrepreneurs have some really interesting hairy monsters. And sometimes they're the reason for the call to action, and sometimes they're after the call to action. So we'll see how that turns out. And then 2 things that I think are really important for the entrepreneurial journey. And one of them is allies, mentors, guides, fans, wind beneath your wings, folks that help you become who you are, because nobody does this alone. I am here to break the ultimate myth of entrepreneurial that it is not done by yourself. Nobody does it by themselves. And I'm sure when we're talking about business relationships, Wanda, we're going to get into that a little bit. And then finally, one of my favorite parts is what Joseph Campbell calls the journey home. And it's really, for entrepreneurs, it's not necessarily a journey home, but how do folks on the home front, how do people who've known you forever, who have these interesting expectations of you as this ordinary person, suddenly you're doing this strange thing. Now, some of the entrepreneurs I've interviewed, they've come from entrepreneurial families and that's just what they did. And that's the way it is. And it's not such a journey. And so folks are twigs in the river. And so it becomes a very interesting thing. So that having been said, now you know everything there is to know about what's coming up, except what is Wanda going to say? So Wanda, what was your ordinary beginning?
Well, it started in my corporate career. I was 19 and college wasn't for me. And so I started as a secretary. Now I'm dating myself because that's a very old title.
Right.
Today they're administrative assistants.
Right.
But I was a 19-year-old secretary and just had such a drive in me, and that I was asphyxiated on, I want to be a senior vice president by the time I'm 30. And my whole life and world became about that. And I achieved that goal. But I spent the lion's share of my career managing SBA departments, small business administration loans, and big departments. And that created a skill within me for creating systems. And then when I went into sales in banking, I learned how critical follow-up is to the sales process. And I thought, well, let me put because how do you operate without systems? That's the way my brain works.
Right.
And so I thought that you got to have systems for the follow-up process. And that's where and how and why I got here today is because of what I developed as a banker in sales.
So, Wanda, would you say that having systems eliminates a lot of either what you might call resistance, or, if we're going to be totally honest, the fear of follow-up?
Yeah, systems they put emotions at bay, which is so crucial when you have to follow up. And systems can be kind of a cold word. And right. For our free spirits and creatives, that word will all but give you a hive. So you just replace that. What's your daily routine? What's your daily system? They both mean the same thing. But I'm an ex-banker, so I'm cool with it.
Right. Well, for the creatives, you could call it your daily discipline.
Yeah,
for creatives, you got to do your stuff every day.
You have to, yeah. And
otherwise you're not creating anything. You're sitting there kind of twiddling your thumbs and going, oh, I'm a creative, and nothing actually gets produced.
Yeah, and creation is one part of it, really important part of it, but then you got to do the other part of it, which is bring business in, so you have somebody to create for.
Right. And so what got you from the leap of, I have to say, banking is probably in most people's heads the most conservative, staid, high-bound, systematized way of being thing. What got you into taking the leap, the jump off the cliff?
Yeah,
to become an entrepreneur.
Yeah, the bank I was working for, we were up for sale. And because I was in senior management, I was privy to that fact. And that was in 2008. So if you remember where the economy was, and banking was in the middle of the firestorm. And the president had asked me if I could please stay till the end, because he couldn't have the wheels falling off the apple cart before the sale. And we were one of the few banks that was actually acquired by another bank and not the FDIC, because that's what was going on there back then. But, I just sat for about 9 months and I watched and I thought, and we were not the lead bank, which means I was going to be on the chopping block because the lead bank would have my position filled. And a friend of mine said, you should speak on follow-up when you leave the bank. And I thought, she said, how you do it. And I didn't know I was doing anything out of the ordinary. And I thought it was a crazy idea, but I thought, what the heck do I have to lose, And so I tried it, and I learned really quickly in general how people really struggle with it. Right. And so that's, and funny enough, 1 month to the day of the merger, the lead bank called me back to see if they called me to see if I would come back. Wow. And I was done. That was 2009. At this point, the economy was still a mess, but when and it makes no sense to anybody else. But that's how I got into entrepreneurship, was forced out of banking because I thought I'd go to my grave as a banker, but you don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think that should be emblazoned on everybody's wall, especially right now. You don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Yes. And you have to be open, right? You have to be open and not resist, because that just makes it harder.
Right. Yeah. So you had gotten enough of a taste just in that 1 month to know, not going back.
Yeah, it was the freedom. And because those last 9 months were so bad, and it just in the industry in general. And I did not want to go back to that. I was like, bye-bye.
Right.
I'll figure it out. I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know if I'm making the worst decision of my life, but what I do know is I don't want to go back into that craziness.
Right. Right. Good for you. I'm all for it. I have such a bias about entrepreneurship.
Yeah. But I am not your stereotypical entrepreneur at all. And
Right.
it's been work. It's been a lot of work, up here. And
right.
So to get out of, I was a very diligent corporate soldier.
Right.
Like you said, banking is so compliance oriented and conservative and all of that, which is not really in alignment with entrepreneurship.
No. And it just goes to show you anybody can become an entrepreneur, right?
Anyone can be crazy.
Anyone can get what I call, although it's a loaded term now, anybody can get infected with the entrepreneur bug. Much more beneficial, let me tell you, than any of the diseases out there. So what were some of the big hairy monsters? What were some of the challenges? You had the banker mindset, as you said, that you got to overcome. Either talk about that or something, some other things that you got to deal with.
The biggest monster for me was getting into an industry that I knew absolutely nothing about. Nothing, the speaking, which obviously always leads into coaching.
Right.
And I had heard a speaker say one time, right when I left the bank, that if you're going to be a speaker, you need to have a book, period. And I'm like, oh my gosh, now I need to write a book. I mean, you talk about a fish out of water. That was the biggest monster. And then the second one was not believing anybody who would want to listen to me speak,
Right.
who would, and what do I know, and all those
Imposter
thoughts.
syndrome.
Yeah. So those were my two biggest battles in the beginning. And, but I had to be willing to go through it. And if, I had an audience of one, I had to be willing to take that embarrassment.
Right.
And
you never know.
You don't. And you know what the crazy thing is? That never happened. We create the worst scenario situations as if they're going to happen.
Right.
And that can prevent action.
Right. And I know some people who jumped out as you did and were into the speaker circuit and went, oh my God, what if I only have, one person, and one person that I know, one woman that I know, who is now an international best-selling author of 3 books, and has a huge thriving practice. One of her talks had only 3 people in it. But it turns out those 3 people launched her career.
Yeah.
So I'll just point out, even if you just have an audience of 1, you don't know. And you can make all of the worst case scenarios in your head that you want, but ultimately it's how you present yourself. You'll get known. It'll work.
Yeah. And I used to be so caught up in the numbers early on. And then I had the experience where I drove like 2 hours. It was an evening event and there was 4 people. And I'm like, but 2 of them created huge opportunities for me. That night, I said, I will never, ever again worry about numbers. And I will let the organizer worry about it. Because, sometimes organizers will apologize. In fact, just this morning, I spoke Friday and it was a pretty good sized group, but she apologized because she said it's usually bigger. And I said, who's ever meant to be there is there. And that's the mindset I take on.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just completely detached myself from how many are there. That was another lesson learned.
Yes.
The energy I spent over worrying how many people are going to be there. I look back now and I think, oh, what a waste that was.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Completely waste. Yeah. So who were some of your allies, mentors, guides? What helped you along on this path?
So I've had coaches that have just been instrumental because I didn't want to recreate the wheel. It had already been created and I needed to be fast tracked. But the number one coach I'm not the number one, the very first coach I hired was an image consultant, which had nothing to do with speaking or coaching because I had real issues. If I didn't have a suit on and skirt and heels and nylons back then, I felt like I was naked, and that does not work because that actually, what I learned can turn people off and turn them away from you. And so I had major issues because I had been a banker my whole adult life, And so anyway, that was the very first, I realized I had a problem and I went and sought help. And then I just had great coaches who are speakers, and that's been really great for me because, again, they've really helped me out. But, I tried it on my own for a while, and I wasted so much money, so much time. And I just hunkered down and bought into the whole coaching idea and understanding of how powerful it is.
Right. It is. You can't, entrepreneurs, you can't do it by yourselves. And no. Like you said, there's all kinds of different coaches. Image coach is absolutely fabulous. I have a friend who's an image coach who's just amazing in helping people present as accessible as they can possibly be, because that's what an image coach does, right?
Oh, yeah.
And yes. That's different than a branding coach.
Right. Like my image coach, if I live to be 100, I will never forget this. She told me she wanted me to go to, it was a networking event where everybody knew me. And so I wasn't speaking or anything, but she had me go in open-toed shoes and khakis. I mean, capris, not khakis, capris. I wanted to die 1,000 deaths. I said, are you kidding me? This is how bad I was.
Right.
And so, but we have to be challenged like that because you know this, you got to get out of your comfort zone and can't keep doing it the way you've always done it. So that was so funny though.
Yes. I have a coach who consistently pushes boundaries for her clients. And when we get into group, she'll say, okay, nobody died, right? You hit your boundaries, you went beyond them, nobody died. Hey, yeah. We continue to go.
Yeah, that's how strong discomfort is. It can be such a driving force, which is not good. And it's same with follow up.
Right. And people have that fear that they're going beyond their comfort zone, and therefore something horrible is going to happen. And and they just got to get over it. And that's what a good coach does.
Yes.
Is gently boot you in the behind.
Yeah.
Going.
Yeah. And it's understanding too, whether it's follow-up or changing your image or whatever it is, you have to be willing to be uncomfortable. And there's so much discomfort with follow-up because there's so many fears. You said it earlier. That's, to me, the number one reason. That's the biggest struggle that's created because of the fears. The biggest follow-up struggles, there's so many fears: fear of being uncomfortable, fear of being pushy, appearing to be pushy, fear of not knowing the outcome, fear of not knowing what to say, fear of rejection. I mean, there's just so many fears that stop people, and therein lies the struggle.
Right.
It's one of the reasons.
Right. But that's as you said, it's got to be the number one reason that people are going to not do it. And if I can guess, and please feel free to correct me, I'm guessing the other is just being lazy.
It's not lazy. It's convincing them. The underlying issue is fear, but the biggest mistake is people convince themselves they don't have time. I've heard it a million times. I can never get my follow-up work done because I'm too busy. No, it's not about the time. You have time to do follow-up work. You're just choosing to use that time in other ways.
Right.
And follow-up work tends to be the uncomfortable work, but the uncomfortable work is what moves the needle in business.
Right.
And sadly, you know, so many people are more committed to being comfortable than they are to being uncomfortable. So it's a lie that you don't have time, but under that lie is fear. I've got something more important, more urgent, more comfortable, lower priority, easier work. Mm-hmm. And it just doesn't work.
Right. Right. And it makes you less successful, which truthfully will make you less busy.
Yes. And then you throw emotions in, and then you're embarrassed and you feel guilty and you're discouraged. And it just a whole plethora of emotions kick in that are heavy. And it's, you know, to schlep around those emotions around on a regular basis, it's exhausting. It steals your joy. You know, and I always say, if you will just follow up every working day, your life changes. Really.
Yes, completely.
Yeah, that's what brings in business. Networking does not bring in business. And networking creates kind of a false sense of accomplishment. It's good. It plants the seed, but that's not, you have to follow up to get that seed to sprout into something. Yes. And you know, but people don't do it. And it's too bad, because there's so much time and energy spent and money spent on networking, and people are networking themselves, you know, to death almost.
Right. And out of business.
Yeah. And a lot of times it's for naught, but like I say, it creates that false sense of accomplishment.
Right. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Who in your life was supportive or not supportive of your entrepreneurial leap, that journey home that may not have been quite such a journey?
Yeah. Well, my husband has been an entrepreneur since he was a teenager. So he gets the whole entrepreneur thing, but he never said this to me, but I'm sure somewhere in him, he questioned, why wouldn't you go back to the bank? You know, I was making very good money. Everything was going to come back when the economy is in such a turbulent time. And, but he never questioned me. He never doubted me. He's always been supportive. My family, I think my dad thought that I fell down and hit my head. But again, they were very supportive, but I'm sure they were very concerned. And, you know, and then my entrepreneurial friends, of course, just thought it was great. And I had banking friends that were envious, like, oh my gosh, I wish I could have done that or could do that, because it was not a good time at that time. So it was an array, but the support that was most important to me was there. But I'm sure I would love to have been a fly on the wall with their behind the scenes conversations about what my decision.
Yes. One of my good friends, when I took the entrepreneurial leap and left my six-figure job to become an entrepreneur, spoke to her father, who was a psychiatrist, and said, oh my God, you know, what is Sue doing? This is nuts. What do we do about this? And her father, who was a very wise man, literally stroked his beard and said, well, you know, there is a term. We do have an official term for what Sue is doing. And she was like, oh, what? And he said, it is entrepreneur.
Oh, yeah.
It's okay. Let her do her thing.
Yeah. You have to. And, you know, it's a risk. And I was never by nature, you know, they were very calculated risks, but that has to go out the window. You know, I would have people ask me, what's your plan B? I said, I don't have a plan B. I can't have a plan B, because if I have a plan B, that means there's a chance this isn't going to work. And I wouldn't let myself go there. But I was asked that question a number of times.
Right. And then you push through.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And all that follow-up work ends up taking hold and
Yes.
moves you forward.
Yes.
Exactly. So, Wanda, I understand that you have some stuff, some wonderful stuff for our viewers and listeners.
Yes. Yeah, they can go to my website, followupsalesstrategies.com, and I offer a free workshop every month. And I also have a free guidebook. So yeah, I've got a couple of free gifts for them.
Nice. And of course, your 2 books are available for sale.
One of them is, my most recent one is, not the other one, because I've changed so much since I wrote that. This one that's on my website is there. Yes, so they can get it. Perfect.
So go get it. All you wonderful entrepreneurs, no matter what stage you're in, follow-up is real. You got to do it. And it provides so many benefits when you follow up. And if you can just get over the fear, however it is that whatever technique you use to get over the fear and just do it, following systems, you're going to find such great benefits in your business and in your life.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't have said it better.
Yes. So thank you, Wanda, for being on my show. This has been a fun conversation. I love the journey from conservative banker to out there speaker and workshop leader and entrepreneur. It's wonderful.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
And thank you to my viewers and listeners on the Sweet Sound of Success. What are your dreams for your business? You know what drives me crazy? Really smart business owners denying their talents because they've been taught it has to be hard, because they've been taught that they don't deserve their gifts, that they're not worth anything. They've been taught that their gender means they can't express their genius. I'm Sue Wilhite, and I want you to have access to your genius. I want you to go out and rock the world with your genius. So I created the Call to Action coaching program. It's all about getting to the heart of you and what you've got to share with the world to make a profitable business that thrives and allows you to make a difference in the world. Click the link to sign up for the Call to Action coaching program today. Don't let your genius go unnoticed.